You have Jason London, who is well known into his comedic field as from Dazed and Confused, but he's more of a dramatic actor in that. You have David Koechner, who has probably some of the greatest lines. Never tell you about how I invented snowboarding.
And he's based on someone they really know who just wore shorts all the time in all the cold weather. They're like, there's always that guy who always wears shorts. I loved him in this movie, Koechner. He said whatever he wanted. Like, he went off script the entire film.
I loved it. I wish I could have heard the story about how he actually invented snowboarding, which was apparently they had to cut it for the R rating to the PG-13, which is he talks about how he had to nail his feet to a board because he was stuck in the snow in a mountain.
I wish I would have seen, like, it's interesting. This movie only pulled $14 million, but I think if it was R rated, it would have pulled the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's also timing as well. I mean, it came out in November of 2001 at the time, and the way we were in America was not exactly the best time for people to go to movies.
Yeah, exactly. Or have those kind of, no one went to the, it was crazy, man. Like, those theaters in those days, it was just a ghost town going through there. But what do you think about, Rick Rambis, Jason London, he was in Dazed and Confused, all the Aerosmith videos. He's actually in a movie called Grind, which I don't know if you've ever seen, but it has Adam Brody, Jennifer Morrison. But there's a character in it called Sweet Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet Lou's the best, is he not?
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie when I was in college, because when I was in college, we had a free video rental place in the building that I lived in, and that was one of the movies. I would just go in there and get whatever movie and watch it. And Grind was one of them, and I was like, Sweet Lou. And his sweet band.
Sweet Lou, he was a cool character, man. I really dug some Sweet Lou.
Yeah. Well, gosh, that guy he was a friend of Eli Roth growing up.
Oh, he was in Cabin Fever.
Yeah, that's how he got that role, was that he knew Eli Roth. And then in the commentary for Cabin Fever, he actually, Eli Roth discusses that he knew him and that he was being pitched for the role, and that they said, "What? You mean little Joey from back in the day?" No. He's like, "No way, I can't." He's like, "That's not the guy." And then he met him, and he's like, "I'll be damned, he actually is a pretty good actor." And you can see that in the movie. Well, you can see that in every movie that he does.
Super Troopers.
Yeah, Joey Kern. You can see that in every movie that he does. That he really does put himself in there. It's good. He's a good actor.
Sweet Lou. So Jason London, though, his character, I know it's not a knock on Jason London. His performance is fine, but they don't really give him anything to do. They put him with AJ Cook, Jenny, in this, and she's like, "You're going with me." And he's like, "Nah, I'm still mourning this lady." Then everyone's mad at him. And then she's kind of like, "I'm just going to wait for you." And he's like, "Okay." Then he gets all mopey over Anna. And then at the end, in this film, he wins that race 3 times in a row. He wins. He puts the beer in his mouth. But I think they tell you more about his greatness than show it. So that's I guess the one weakest part. And I think maybe a lot of these movies have that, where the core character, you kind of want them to go away, because I enjoyed Anthony, played by Flex Alexander. I like David Denham, Lance, the bartender. Pigpen, Luke. I like Stumpy. Give me give me Ted Muntz or Eric, played by Thomas Lennon, which is nuts in this.
Yeah. So you had a lot of comedy powerhouse coming into this. Thomas Lennon was not a spring chicken in the comedy field whenever he made this movie. He had a bunch of stuff behind him.
That weird scene with Pigpen on the online chatting room. You look back though, man, and this movie just has the bull riding that used to be famous, and then it had that soundtrack, and I don't know. And this also, this is weird, but I used to do a food job. I used to manage food events across the country. Some of these were in Snowmass, and we had around the Aspen area. And when they were we don't want it to be like Aspen, I could see it. This town that they're in, Bull Mountain, looks like fun. But then you go to Aspen, they have these really swanky food events. There's a lot of money. When I was in Snowmass, I was doing a job there out of season, and it was just the locals. And when I entered their restaurant, they kind of looked at me like, "Oh man, who's this guy?" And then I just ordered the special every day. Then they're like, "Oh, this guy trusts us. He's cool." So I bonded with him. But I feel like the authenticity inside that local restaurant I went to during the off season kind of felt a little bit like Old Cold. You watch these party scenes, and there's people of all ages in it. There's not there's one guy in this movie. The directors are we featured him so much that he wanted a line, but if we gave him a line, we had to pay him for all the past days.
Oh no!
So they kept finding ways to just shove him in a scene, but not give him a line.
Oh gosh!
And
which guy was it?
You'll notice them. So they're when Pigpen puts the poop down on the table, the fight breaks out, and there's like an elderly gentleman, and he gets trucked in the background, but you'll see him everywhere in the movie.
Yeah, he's in the party scene. He's in there. Yeah. He was at the bar. I remember. Oh yeah, he stuck out a lot. Actually, when I was watching the movie again, I thought, how come that guy doesn't say anything?
Yeah, yeah, and they didn't want to pay him.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, the budget's tight. You can't do much about that. I'm sure renting out that whole area was not exactly cheap, or reconstructing the snow course, as you said.
There's a lot of money on that. And I was working with, I was listening to the commentary, and the Malloy brothers. So they have a lot of family who were surfers. So they just started filming them, Brendan and the two Malloy brothers.
Brendan and Emmett.
Yeah, and then they started doing music videos. I mean, they did
Blink-182.
I mean, they had, here they are. So they had like First Date, like by Blink. They had The Rock Show. They've done Kesha, Avril Lavigne, Metallica, White Stripes loves them. The Kooks, Demi Lovato, Weezer, Newfound Glory, Jack Johnson. I mean, at the time, Papa Roach. They directed some of the some of the music videos. They did Saint Anger, which
that's a nuts video too.
Yeah, and so these guys were Unwritten Law. They talked about how they had no idea what they were doing. They just filmed surfing things and got popular from it. But it's not easy to film surfing, but it's such a cinematic. Like you could sit on a board and get a great shot, and that's very hard. You need to know framing and all that kind of stuff. But they said their first video where they had a techno crane and everything, they just screwed up royally because they had no idea how to use them. And like this movie, I guess, like how do you think they did in their kind of, because they didn't make another movie until recently, like what, 2017, 2018, with Micah Monroe and Jennifer Garner. And they, on their website, you can go to their website, and they don't even mention Out Cold. It's nowhere on their website. I mean,
that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I felt bad. I was looking through their website, all their music videos, but no Out Cold. But I don't know, man. There's a story, which I know every movie should have a story, but there's a story, right? There's a few good gags. You know what's going on. There's a narrative. Like, if that's your first movie when you're young, I wouldn't be too disappointed with it.
No, they were what, in their mid to late 20s at this point.
They didn't even know what they were doing.
They did a great job with what they had. I mean, they did have some powerhouse guys behind. I mean, guys and people in general working with them. I mean, they had the DP, Richard Crudo, who was a Steadicam assist on Ghostbusters 2 and Raising Arizona, Field of Dreams, and Donnie Darko. Yeah. He was also the DP on American Pie and Down to Earth and Grind. So he knew what he was doing. They had a lot of help. It's not like they couldn't have just reached out and been like, hey, we know that you have a lot of history behind you. Can you help us out with this one? And I think they did a great job with this.
And I think what's funny that you say that, a lot of times they just said they faked it till they faked it until they made it. A lot of times, like, we just had to act what we were doing, and if we didn't know, we just asked one of, like, our DP. Hey, man.
When in doubt, you ask the DP, because chances are they know exactly what to do.
Hey, can you come over here real quick? So, how's coffee? You drinking some coffee? Is the coffee good? That's great. Hey, so, what should we do here? Oh, don't look like you're, we're not asking you this, but you know what I mean? Like, we're not asking you this, but if we did ask you this, what would you do?
So if we were to ask your opinion on this shot, what do you think that we should do? Are you talking about Steadicam? We want to do a crane shot? Because honestly, I thought a crane was a type of bird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what is a techno crane? Is that music? Is that like a strobe light crane?
Oh, I really like techno. Yeah, that's. You heard of Fatboy Slim? They're pretty good.
Do you put a speaker around a bird and play loud music?
One of the first music videos they did was "In Together Now" by Limp Bizkit, which I thought was probably their best music video out of that era.
No, First Date, dude. First Date was amazing. Are you talking about in that era?
No. I meant of Limp Bizkit.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and Blink-182 always had some great music videos, in my opinion. What was it? First Date, What's My Age Again is probably one of the most original ones that they did.
All the small things, making fun of the boy bands.
That was a cool one, too. I think that one probably, maybe if people watched it nowadays, they probably wouldn't understand that they were making fun of all those music videos because it was made in 98, 99, somewhere around there when the height of all those boy bands were coming out. So I don't know if that probably would have got lost in translation about the hilariousness of that video.
Yeah, that was huge. Remember TRL, how big that was?
Yeah. Do you remember when Carson Daly used to dye his hair and now he's just on the Today Show? Dang. What
Promoting
happened?
Filter. I remember they
Yeah.
pushed the Filter. Like, you guys, this new song by Filter. Oh my gosh.
I remember when Filter was before they came out with
Hey, man.
yeah, that album was fire. I don't think people understand that, man. That album was awesome. It was whenever grunge was huge. Filter was not grunge, and it was great. And then they came out with another album which had oh gosh, Want to Take Your Picture.
Yeah.
And it was like, what the hell is this?
And that's the one they promoted a lot.
Yeah, it's like no, they've had a great album before that. No. 90s had some great stuff.
And then American Pie. Do you think? All right. So there were a lot of teen comedies in the '90s, but I think American Pie kind of kicked off this and Jackass. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. American Pie was a huge film when it came out in '99, and that really kind of kickstarted all those films yet again because in the '80s we had a gigantic movement of teenage sex comedies, and they died off more or less, and the late '90s was a comeback in full force. And they lived for a little bit. I mean, you had I think American Wedding was probably the last good one because then at that point it just kind of died and people weren't really interested in them anymore.
Chris
I don't know.
Kelly,
I don't think they really came back in.
American Reunion is the best because
American Reunion. That was a fun one.
A certain person named Mark Hoffmeyer has a very big role as party guy in that movie. The 80-yard lines into my mouth.
Really? I'm gonna have to watch it again. I haven't seen that movie. I saw it when it first came out.
That's the lines they put. There was a party scene and this guy was too afraid to pour wine. So like, who can pour wine? They're like, Hoffmeyer can pour wine. So then I got a bottle of wine.
Who's the drunkest one in the room? Hoffmeyer, get over here.
Yeah, Hoffmeyer, you can do it. So then I'm pouring wine for this person and the 80-yard dialogue in my mouth. Tell me when.
Oh,
and I was really disappointed. So I had to like when Tara Reid walks into a party, she walks up to me and starts talking to me. At first, we were both talking. They're like, we're not paying him. And then she was talking, and they're like, well, that's weird. And then we pantomimed. But then they basically cut all of I had a big like pantomime scene going on there, man. Yeah. So if you watch that party scene, American Reunion, you got Mark Hoffmeyer flying all over the place, skulking around.
Oh man, I thought we were
skulking around. All right, the one scene in this movie that I think I don't enjoy is when Flex is in bed with this lady and she pulls the covers away from him and then farts. I don't really get that scene. That's and you know the actress sent the director notes and she's like, "What if smoke came out of my butt?"
Huh.
And they were like, "Yeah, no, well, we don't need smoke butt."
Yeah, well, why would there be smoke coming out of her butt? I guess it would be dusty or something. I don't know. Dusty butt. I don't know.
But that's stuff you learn from this commentary. And they had their grandma on the commentary. I think they thought it was. Now she's very pleasant, and I think they thought it was going to be really funny with her watching this movie. But for the most part, she was just going, "I don't know what to do," and then she was quiet for long periods of time. And then she left the room for certain scenes, and then she was just like, "I don't know, well, who is that?"
She's like, "I hear they have cookies out there. I like cookies."
And I felt terrible too because they're like, "Grandma, we're going to be reviewed on Roger Ebert's going to review our movie," and she's like, "Oh, that's really neat," but then he never reviewed it.
Oh, I read his review. Oh wait, no wait, I'm sorry. No, I didn't get to reading his review. Yeah, I read from the newspaper that he used to write for San Francisco Chronicle.
Oh, got it. What did they say about it?
They were not very big fans of it. Actually, this movie in general was not very well received by critics. I think it was just the timing that we were at the tail end of a lot of these teenage sex comedies, and then you were getting mid to late 20s sex comedies. And, you know, this movie was more of a revival of the 80s ski resort films. There was a bajillion of these films that came out in the 80s. You had, you know, the most famous one is probably Better Off Dead, which was starring John Cusack, where he gets challenged to be the king. You know, I think.
Oh, I love that. The skiing. Yeah, that's great.
That's a great one. And Jim Carrey also was in one of them. There were just tons of these. There were piles of these movies, and this was kind of like a revival of those, which didn't really work out so well. People seemed to be more interested in the American Pie type of films, which you had, you know, it's kind of the same story, but without the skiing.
Yeah.
So
and no
the San
Casablanca.
Francisco and Casablanca. I don't think that one set very well with folks. They didn't really, either one didn't get it, or two, they did get it and didn't appreciate the throw to it.
You know, there's tons of it, right? So
Oh gosh, throughout
like
the whole movie.
so Rick's cold